Hi, good night, everyone. Well, I was thinking about it, and I just wanted you all to know not every night is going to be serious or have a heaviness to it. But tonight we're dealing with social class. All right. Before I get into it, I want to give you some examples of my experience. Uh, a few years ago, I started working at a government ministry, and since I okay, so 5 years, so it's from 2010 thereabout, I started wearing suits to work every day. My sister once told me, one of the few times we communicated deeply, and I'm not even sure if she'd remember this, but she told me, dress for the job you want, not for the job you have. So, yeah, so I started wearing suits. And what I noticed when I was wearing the jacket and tie and those kind of things is people treated me differently. When I was off of work and going through Port of Spain, for example, and in a t-shirt and jeans, and looking to cross the street, I would have a hard time waiting for cars to stop for me to cross. And there was a marked difference when I was wearing a jacket and tie and wanting to cross the street. Whether a man, woman, or anybody who was driving would stop for me to cross based on what I had on. And I think that lends to what the perceptions are of social class, as well as the perceptions we put on ourselves, the perceptions we put on other people, and how we respond to those perceptions. Because I am no different from anybody else, and what I have on should not affect how I'm treated. You would hear in the past where a bank employee had a dreadlocks and he was fired, but then won a case in court because it was for medical reasons. He was growing his hair or something like that. Long hair, at least. So people try to make us conform to look a certain way and sound a certain way and those kinds of things. And really, that is... Hi, Tony. Yeah. So that is very unfortunate. So I'll get into it a little bit. So basically, it's society breaks us up into four groupings when it comes to class. You have quote-unquote upper class. Some of us call it the 1%ers and so forth, because generally there's a correlation between money and class. And then there is the middle class, the working class, and the lower class, or the poor. And we live in this society with all these labels because, I wouldn't say because, or we allow it to happen, and we conform to it. And especially in Trinidad and Tobago, it seems like we accept a lot more than some other places would. I guess that's why the happiness index from wherever indicates, like we're one of the happiest people in the world, in spite of our problems. And right. So defining social class, it informally recognized in many societies as the upper class, middle class, working class, and lower class. And what I described to you by my encounter when wanting to cross the street when I had on a t-shirt and jeans compared to when I had on a suit, a jacket, tie, and shirt, and soft pants and stuff like that, it showed how people's perceptions of you affect how they treat you. Now, I'm not speaking, I would say that that should not be. But of course, in the past, for example, I would have interacted with people on the street when I did a short program on TV6, What Towns Say. That used to be, I used to go around and interview people and so forth. And I met all sorts of people in terms of their economic backgrounds and life situations and those kinds of things. And of course, during my interactions, during social work and everything else, I would have met people from various classes as well. And the thing is, what it really boils down to is everybody is the same. It's just that our life experiences help us to judge things differently and treat people differently. And again, it goes back to labels. This category, I mean, we would have dealt with race before, we would have dealt with sexuality, we would have dealt with gender and all those things. But this category I find disturbing because of how it really depends on person's perceptions as opposed to the reality, and how it causes people, whether from any one of the classes I mentioned, to act differently and or treat others from other classes differently. You know, like you would hear some people, as this person gets a little bit of money, they change on you or things like that. And unfortunately, that's what happens with some people. They assume roles based on what they encounter. Now, I want to get to the perpetuation of classes based on income and based on our own allowing things to happen. You would hear the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. The poor gets poorer because of things that go on in society. And recently you would have had the CNN interview speaking about which a lot of people had taken offense to. And the thing is, it's not really per se altogether the 1%'er's fault or the 10%'er's fault or anybody else's fault, except all of us taking part to blame in it, because we encourage those situations of social class, we encourage those situations of having we encourage those situations where class is the norm, where race is the norm, where discrimination is the norm, where we treat others differently based on what they wear. I've had people snob at me at times when I had $10,000 in my pocket because I went to shop with a busted up t-shirt, a jeans, and a slippers. Now, I'm not going to go shopping in my Sunday best, but these sales clerks felt, I mean, you would have seen it in movies, but I actually experienced it. These sales clerks watch you and they actually may want to call security because you don't look like, you know. And lo and behold, in that particular situation, the manager knew me. So the manager came and dealt with me because he knew me from before. So it just goes back to the point of perceptions as well, and not labeling people based on something you see or based on the social norms and so forth, but what people identify as. And in this category, where I've spoken about in sexuality, persons identifying as being straight, or members of the LGBTQI community, or otherwise, or race, I said I identified as brown, not black. And because of my heritage being so broad, from 4 continents basically, it would be difficult for me to say what my heritage is specifically. But as far as class is concerned, that's different. There really shouldn't be the extent of classing that we see. Persons not only allow government and others to class them. Hi Marlene, how you doing? How are things? Are you still in Carnage, by the way? Yeah, so it's not about necessarily, because on one hand they class you as lower class, middle class, whatever, but when it comes to job numbers and stuff, I mean, the amount of people that apply to or through propitious TNT for jobs, and the number of persons that you hear are unemployed, and then every year 18,000 or so young people graduate high school, so 18 or so thousand more people are looking for jobs. And in a recessionary time like this, that's 18,000 people who probably won't get jobs. So that the job numbers is another thing that we would have to look at, really. So it's only when it's favorable you hear like the unemployment rate is 5% or 4% and those kinds of things. And really and truly, I don't think it's that low. I think it's a lot higher than that. But meaning that the working class, as they say, and the lower class numbers would be higher than we would think. And it's good to have those descriptions when you're trying to determine the need of a country. But where it becomes a problem is when we use those categories and those labels to belittle people or to take them down a peg or two to make yourself look better or feel better and so forth. So the labels associated with class can be of use when it comes to nation building and planning and so forth to meet the needs of brackets. If you say like person's income $0 to $1,000 or whatever kind of thing, yes, I can understand it in those perspectives, but not when it comes to treating people negatively based on their economic sustainability, as it were, or anything else associated with that. Alright, we do have a hierarchy in this country. Anybody who says differently is in denial or lying. These people who are in the hierarchy basically run the country. Because if they pay for the political parties' campaigns, they're not doing it out of the goodness of their hearts all the time, are they? So they would affect the percentage of working class, the percentage of lower class, etc., based on the policies that they encourage the party that they help put in power to actually implement. Yeah. So it's really unfortunate that we have to live in a class system like this. But as I would have said with race and sex and everything else, it starts with us and ends with us. I'm forgetting the quote that Leah gave me from Gandhi. Be the change you want to see. That's it. Yeah. So if you see someone in a suit wanting to cross the road like I was, or if you see someone in a busted up t-shirt and jeans like I was, stop the same way to let them cross whatever they have on. If you perceive someone to be wealthy or poor, it's the same sun above us both. It's the same country we live in. We're both human beings. So then let us understand and appreciate each other from that perspective. And we actually sometimes unintentionally as well discriminate because of class. Not many of us would be considered the hierarchy. Not many of us would be considered the upper class or middle class. But still, that doesn't stop the working class from discriminating against each other based on income, based on where they live, based on all those things affect societal classing. You know, we've dealt with shades of black, as it were. We've dealt with all these different things that speak to how we segregate and by labeling people differently. And what I want us to come away with from these 4 sessions is that we ought not to label persons for purposes of making them feel smaller, or try to avoid labels on the whole. But like I said, there are circumstances where labels help persons as well, to understand who they are or where they're at and where they'd like to be and so forth. But if you're looking down on somebody because of their class or position, economic standing, or what they have on, I wish I had a better example, but the only example I have, as I said, is when I walk the street in a t-shirt and jeans compared to when I walk the street in a jacket and tie. People treat me very differently. And I'm saying that we should try to see beyond that, because it's the same person. I'm the same person I was in the t-shirt and jeans compared to the person that I was in the jacket and tie. So I can see from my own experience where people judge and treat with people differently based on the perception of their position in social class. And that really is unfortunate. So let us try not to do that as far as possible. And let us grow in our ability to recognize when we are not, or to recognize when we are heading down the road of judging based on class and treating people differently based on that. I mean, we could understand that someone is working for less than us or more than us, but the difference is not to treat them differently because of it. Either hate on them or scoff at them based on those kinds of things. And even though it's 4 different topics, you would see there are commonalities in terms of labels, in terms of identity, and those kinds of things. And what people aspire to sometimes is to get out of one class into another, as opposed to just bettering themselves as human beings. So that's about it. Thank you so much for viewing. Tomorrow we'll have another one, and I'll keep it a surprise until it actually happens. So have a good night. Remember, I said, if you love someone, tell them you love them, show them you love them. Okay, ciao.